So all yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening, and this morning, I was taking a look at the Weather Channel, and the Weather Channel is saying that the rain percentages have gone up from about 40% to about 70%, about 75%. And so this morning, I went ahead and I went ahead and went to the co-op this morning and bought a load of fertilizer. Urea right now is $540 a ton. So I went ahead and I bought a ton and a half, and so I paid but they gave me $835 worth of urea, and so I got the urea, and I'm gonna go ahead and you'll get to see the buggy tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll have the buggy out back there, and I'll be fertilizing the field, and so. I'm gonna fertilize the field on either tomorrow or on Monday, and I'm just gonna put straight urea across the field. And I was taking a look at it, and I think that I'll probably end up buying myself a buggy. I'm gonna have to see how much they cost. From what I was seeing on the internet, I found a place, and I'm gonna call them, and I'm gonna see if they if I can get myself a buggy. And so, but the whole thing about equipment, I was talking about equipment, is that I really want to just start paying cash for equipment. I don't really want to take a loan to buy equipment, because the thing about equipment, my whole big thing about equipment is like, why do I not want to buy equipment with leverage? And why do I not want to take a loan for equipment? Is because equipment is 100% a depreciating asset. It always goes down in value, and the golden rule with equipment is that it always breaks. The thing about equipment is that you're always going to have to fix it. It's always going down in value. It's always going to break. You're going to have to put new tires on it. You're going to have to fix something on it. You're going to have to change the oil on it. I mean, it's always, something's always going to go wrong with the equipment. And there is not any real way to appreciate the value of a piece of equipment unless you are like collecting something that's like a collector's item, right? Like a Ferrari, like a real old Ferrari, and you're not using it at all, right? And you just have it in a garage somewhere. I mean, something like that, sure, it may go up in value, but a piece of farm equipment is not going up in value, and it's always going to break too. And so I don't really want to buy equipment on leverage. And so I've been talking about it, and I've just been taking I've been talking about this idea that when I take a look at what I'm doing, and I'm not saying this to brag, I'm not saying this I'm just saying this like I'm stating a fact. But as of right now, my money is about to go vertical. Okay, I was talking about this in terms of a perspective. A lot of times when you see somebody, when you see somebody, and you're like, oh my God, this guy is, whatever, right? Has makes a boatload of money. Usually, this is the part that you get to see. But in all reality, and I know that this, and I know I'm not trying to sound like a prick. I mean, I've always said that, it's like, oh my God, well, this is a guy with a multi-million-dollar net worth, and he makes, he generates like $20,000 a month, and he's talking about he's gonna 2.5 times his income. And it's like, but it's like, at the end of the day, I didn't just magically do this, okay? I mean, this was a very long process, and it's legitimately, if you want to think about it in terms of a realistic perspective, farming is effectively so difficult that effectively nobody can do it. Like, when you take a look at me farming and you're watching me farm, you're effectively potentially watching somebody who is, in terms of a skill level, I may effectively be like the highest skilled individual on the entire planet. One of them. All right, like, if you're legitimately going to go and look for somebody who's as good as me at farming in terms of a skill level, it's practically 0%. And if you take a look at, and if you just take a look at how much money I generate, and then you consider it, we're talking about 0.00001% to 0.00001%. If we're going to try and find, if we're going to go around and we're going to collect the best farmers on the entire planet, and then there's going to be like people like effectively in terms of skill level, you're looking for somebody like me. Maybe we're talking about 5 people on the entire planet, if that. All right, it's very low. I mean, the chances of you finding anybody, it's like, you know, here is a guy who legitimately, if you just put him on, you know, it doesn't matter. It's like, you know, I could legitimately go anywhere. You know, I could go into if I was in the middle of Central Texas, I could effectively go anywhere. And it's like, even if I had nothing, I could make myself $1 million in a year, no problem. All right, it wouldn't, no problem. Right, I mean, if the markets did horrible, you know, if the cattle market fell, you know, the entire way, you know, the entire year, then maybe it takes me 2 years to do it, but it's no problem. I mean, effectively, and you know, God knows it, and when I say these things, I mean, it just is. I mean, I'm just stating a fact. But me, effectively, when you take a look at me farming, I am effectively so good at farming that money has become negligible to me. If I really want more money, I'll just farm more. If I just run more cattle, I'll make more money. All right, you know, and another way to look at it is effectively, you know, if I put $1 into an animal and everything goes decently well, when I take that animal to 550 pounds, I make about a 30 to 40% return on my money, and it takes me about 6 months. If I take the animal up to about 850, I make about a 70% return on my money. All right, and so and it takes me about 8 or 9 months. All right, and so it's like every time I put $1 into my business, I get like $1.50, $1.70 back. And that's another way to look at it. I mean, you know, in terms of, and it's like in knowledgeably, I understand how to do this, right? I mean, this is not luck. All right, I've talked about this. I mean, in terms of farming, if you actually take a look at somebody like me, this is 100% skill-based work. If you cannot do the work, then you cannot do it. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. The only way to learn how to do something like this is to learn how to do it. It's the only way. Nobody was born to be a farmer. All right, nobody was born to be a farmer. Nobody is magically just gonna skip all of the work and then just end up, it's not gonna happen. I actually do not know anybody that's even managed to do 10%. All right, and so, you know, and I wanted to talk about this today. And because I've been saying that, you know, the amount of money that I'm going to be generating since about last week is going to go vertical. And so I'm going to list out my balance sheet, and then we're going to come back and we're going to take a look at my balance sheet, because, you know, I was talking about, you know, come back and you can watch the video. You know, I titled it, you know, you can watch this video on December 1st, 2025, right? Watch this video. You know, I made a business plan. I made a 1-year business plan for myself, and I said come back and watch this video on December 1st, 2025, right? And it gives you a point of reference, and you're going to be able to see you know, what I mean by forward thinking, objectively correct, 100% skill-based work. This is not luck. All right, and I've already said that certain parameters need to be met for my business to effectively operate like that. But if the parameters change, I will make a video and I will say the parameters have changed. The feeder cattle market has fallen. The corn market has gone up, whatever it may be. All right, but you know, it's not going to change. So, you know, in terms of a reality perspective, the percentage chance of me failing by not being able to overcome something in terms of farming, you know, because farming in terms of a skill level, I may be one of the best farmers on the entire planet in terms of skill level. The chances of me failing by not being able to farm is effectively 0%. If I were legitimately going to fail my business, as of right now, if I were going to fail my business, I would effectively have to start doing something like hard drugs. Right? I mean, I would have to start gambling. I would have to, you know, go and drink a bunch of alcohol, something like that. You know, the chances of me failing by not being able to farm is effectively 0%. Borderline 0%. I am, you know, in terms of skill level, I am effectively one of the best. You know, I may be a contender for one of the best farmers on the entire planet. All right, I mean, it is that bad. When I take a look and you know, and we're gonna be out on my new field tomorrow, and I'm gonna be fertilizing my field tomorrow, and you know, here in about a week, I'll be taking animals over to my new field. And you know, the amount of money, and I'm gonna give you my balance sheet as of right now, so we can. I'm gonna give you my balance sheet, and we can come back and we can take a look at it in a year from today. So as of right now, I have about $2 million in assets. Okay, you know, I have about $1 million worth of real estate. I have about $250,000 worth of equipment and farm and cattle equipment and cattle. I have about $250,000 worth of cattle and equipment. And then I also have about another if I say that my business, well, not if I say, if I take a look at my business, and my business is averaging about $60,000 a year of net profit, and I take a 15 times that multiple, then we're talking about 900 grand. And so effectively right now, my balance sheet is somewhere around about $2 million in assets. All right, that's how my assets are distributed. I used a 15 times multiple of my earnings. I took my real estate for their appraisal value, and then I took my equipment and my cattle. So right now I have about $2 million worth of assets, right? And in less than 365 days, in 365 days, we will take a look at it. And I am legitimately telling you right now that I anticipate that my assets are going to go over 5 million. I am going to have a net worth, how do I see that happening? Well, I'm going to be building my herd, right? I've already talked about this. If I did not take the money, and yesterday I was saying that up until about now in February, I have somewhere, it's like 10 to 14 grand, and it's not cash. Okay, I've talked about this all the time in terms of a business, in terms of like, if you want to really understand money, you have to understand that cash is not the only way to have money. It is not the only way to have money. If you actually if you actually take a look at and it's like you have the capacity, right? I'm not if you have the capacity, but if you're well qualified enough and you are actually able to determine the appraisal value of an asset. Like, let's say you have an asset and that asset is valuable, right? The asset is equitable, right? Why is an asset equitable? Because it is valuable to everybody. It is not valuable to just one individual. It is effectively valuable to everybody. And so when you have something that is equitable and you want to determine its equitable value, how do you do that? You appraise it. And so when I appraise my assets, I take a look at these assets, these cattle. When I take a look at an animal about this size, me right now, I'm really I would say that the death loss for an asset like this is going to be about 5 to 7%. Maybe I lose one animal. All right. By the time these animals get to about 850 pounds, maybe I lose one animal. All right. If it's real bad, I'll lose two. And so, and if I take a look at and I appraise it for what it is, right? The equitable value of my assets are going up in value by this much every month. Because of this reason, right? I'm feeding my animal a 65 to 70% TDN diet that is roughly 12 to 14% protein. I don't give them a total mixed ration, but when I take a look at them, how do I know that they are eating this diet, right? I grade their manure score, right? If their manure score comes in about a 3, then I'm good to go. And so if they're eating if they have a manure score of about a 3, then I know that their diet is good, right? Because they're if they're having massive amounts of diarrhea, or their manure looks like clumped up like baseballs, I mean, that's not good, right? And so when I take a look at my animal, and effectively, if these animals are eating somewhere between a 12 to 14% diet and a 65 to 70% energy diet, roughly, I keep their manure score at about a 2.5 or a 3. Right, if I keep their manure score at about a 2.5 or a 3, they'll effectively gain. When they're about this size, they'll effectively gain about 75 pounds a month. Right, they'll effectively gain about 75 pounds a month. If they get and if they get a little bit bigger, and and they whatever, then maybe I put on about 90 pounds a month. Right, and if I appraise my animals, if I take a look at my animals and I say my animals are at an average weight estimate of about 425 pounds, right, and I anticipate that the overall state of my cattle is that they are going to gain 75 pounds a month, then in 1 month they will weigh 500, in 2 months they will weigh 575, in 3 months they will weigh 650, right? And these type of cattle, when I take a look at my cattle, and I take a look at the quality of my cattle, I take about a 10% deduction off the feeder cattle market, right? If the feeder cattle market is sitting at 250, then these cattle, maybe they're, realistically, maybe they're worth about 225, 220. Because I don't buy straight number one type cattle, right? And that would also be for a steer. If we're also talking about heifers included, then I'm gonna drop that number even more. All right, I mean, we're talking about maybe about $2 to about $2.15, because the feeder cattle number is a number one type commodity steer. Right, and I also buy heifers, right? I don't buy straight number one type commodity steers. I've talked about this, right? I mean, in my area, you don't really even see number one type. You don't really even see long strings of number one type, commodity cattle. You just don't really see that. I mean, if you go to a cattle market in my area, you're going to see all types of cattle. I mean, there are, in this area of Texas, there is a massive number of cattle. I mean, like, we're talking about like a 25, probably, it's probably about there are like 7, 8, 9, 10 sale barns within a 1 hour circle of me. All right, and each one of these sale barns sell like an average of 1,500 to 2,000 cattle a week. And so, we're talking about like a 15 to 20,000 cattle a week that gets sold in my area. There is a massive amount of cattle in my area, but the cattle are not the highest quality. All right, I mean, people are not running straight number one type of cattle in my area. There's a large mix of cattle. All right, and so, I don't buy straight number one type cattle. If I was looking at my steers and I was going to, take a estimate for what do I anticipate my steers are worth, I mean, we're talking about maybe a 10 to 15% deduction of the feeder cattle market if I include heifers into the whole thing. And if you take a look at my business plan, I was actually, if you take a look at my business plan from about 2 days ago, and you take a look at the fine print, you're going to see that I am anticipating that I make $1,600 per 850 pound animal. That means that is less than $2 a pound. And I lowballed myself. And that estimate is correct. If the feeder cattle market, I actually wrote this on the business plan as well, but the feeder cattle market has to be between 240 and 250. All right, and so, I anticipate that I'm going to make somewhere around $1.90, $2 a pound, at 850. And when these, under these parameters, right? And so, I mean, but here is, but that is a list of my assets. As of right now, I have about 2 million in assets. And we're going to go over what my asset sheet looks like in 1 year. All right, we can take a look at it in 1 year. And I would actually bet, I would bet 10 to 1 that my asset sheet goes over $5 million in the next 365 days. I'm telling you the amount of, and I'm not saying this to brag. All right, I'm not saying this to boast. I'm not saying this to whatever. I'm just saying this like it's a fact. I'm about to generate millions of dollars. All right, I legitimately, I'm taking a look at it, and I've taken an objectively correct look at, and I've already said, that one of the big, when I talk about, increasing income and making more money, one of the big things that I am looking to do, right, one of the big things that I am looking to do is to show you that it is possible to intentionally increase the amount of money that you make. It is possible. Making money is not luck. If you sit there and you take a look at it and you can intentionally make money, you can. All right, and I'm not talking about selling your soul to the devil. I'm talking about a realistic, you can actually intentionally increase your income. If I can increase my income to $3 million a year, to $5 million a year from whatever, let's say I was making whatever, $1 million a year, and I can increase my income from $1 million a year to $3 million a year intentionally, then you can go and you can raise your income from 40,000 to 80,000, whatever it may be. All right, and in terms of money, and I've talked about this in terms of money. Like when you go to the bank, when I go to the bank and you talk to the bank is not looking for cash. All right, I mean, if you have somebody who legitimately believes that cash is the only way to make money, you more than likely have a very poor person. Cash is not the only way to make money. Cash is the most ridiculous way to make money. All right, like me, when I take a look at how much money do I have, when I take a look at how much money I have, I do not think about it in terms of cash. I take a look at my assets. I say, my assets, if I have some, like these red steers and I have a couple of black steers, right? And, if they're at 650 pounds, and these are, these four red and black steers, they're effectively number 1 to 1.5 type commodity animals. All right. This is a Texas commodity animal. They're maybe about 600 pounds right now. Maybe I make 30 to 40% on my money. All right. Like if I liquidated this animal right now, I would make about 30 to 40% net profit. And so, like me, and nobody who's actually very rich asks anybody how much cash do you have. Okay, that's not how it works. I mean, like if you have, and I've already talked about this, but everybody effectively on the very top end of the economy, all right, everybody on the very top end of the economy is effectively all doing the same thing. Everybody is effectively doing the same thing. Almost everybody is making their money via straight equity. Because when you have equity, and I've talked about this in terms of my perspective, like what is equity, right? Me, when I start a business, let's say, like me, I bought this new piece of land and there's nothing on it. When I show up and I start farming the land and I start making money, that is now a business, right? I am making money. I have started myself a business, and that business has effectively been created out of thin air. That business did not exist. I showed up, I started the business, and I started making money. When you make money via equity, it is like printing your own money. You're effectively generating money out of nothing. All right. And when you have something that is equitable, you can collateralize it for whatever it is that you want. And you also, and I've always said that you want to be making somewhat of a substantial positive return on your equitable assets, right? I talk about, it's one of the biggest criteria. If you're going to do a deal, if you're going to go and you're going to, leverage for whatever it is, you're going to go and get yourself an equitable asset. One of the biggest criteria in terms of obtaining this asset is that it is making a positive return, right? I talk about this all the time, right? You have to be making a positive return on your equitable asset. Effectively, you put $1 into it and you got $1.25 back, right? Like me, in terms of my cattle, I put $1 into my animal and I get $1.70 back. All right, $1. Sometimes I even get $2 back. All right, if I don't do very good, I make $1.30 back. All right, something like that. You need to be making a positive return. All right, and I would highly that is one of my criteria in terms of and I've said this like 50,000 times, right? I mean, like if you're gonna go, I would highly suggest making money via equity, because when you have something that is equitable, it's not taxable, right? I mean, no, the government's not going to be like, oh my God, you started yourself a business and you started making yourself, your business has an evaluation of whatever, $3-4 million, and now you need to pay 50% tax on it. They're not, they can't do that. All right. I mean, what do you want me to do? Sell my business to an imaginary buyer and then pay taxes? It's not possible. I've already talked about this. Paying taxes on equity is ridiculous. It's not something that can be done. But if you can create equity, and I've already said that there are many ways to create equity. You do not need to start your own business to create equity. You do not. All right. And in reality, most of you should not be starting your own business. Nobody cares about your business. And if you started a business, it's probably going to be the worst decision that you've ever made in your entire life. Most people. All right. If you take a look at me, you have to understand that when you are looking at someone like me, the chances of getting to something like this in terms of the broader U.S. economy is 0.00001 to 0.00001%. It is effectively 0%. All right, and I've already talked about in terms of my bigger, broader ideas, right? I mean, it's like, but here's the thing, and I've always said that this is the other side of the equation, is that if you are born with 100 IQ, you are effectively capable of learning how to do all of this. If you have 100 IQ, you are capable of learning how to do all of this, but chances are it's not going to happen. For whatever reason you will not make it. Almost nobody's made it, and it's actually so bad that I actually don't know anybody that's even doing 10%. And so, it's, you got to think about it for what it is. I mean, it's effectively 0%. And I've already talked about this, but and this is going to sound horrible, but if you take a look at it for what it is, I mean, like me, I don't even make that much money in terms of the broader scale of things. I don't even make that much money, and I still make somewhere between 100 to 250 times more money than the average American. In terms of my financial standings, I don't even make that much money. Right? Like I'm not even close to being one of the richest people on the entire planet. And I still make about 100 to 250 times more money than the median income. All right, you have to understand that wealth is distributed on a scale where it's like, if you're the best, you effectively get to take everything. And that is essentially how the economy should work. If you take a look at it for what it is, from like 10,000 feet back, and you actually take a look at, there is no sharing, there is no giving everybody an equal share. It's not possible. And I know that sounds horrible, but you have to think about it for what it is. Everybody does not get an equal portion. All right, there is no, communism does not work. All right, and so communism does not work. Everybody does not get a fair share. Okay, I mean, everybody does get their fair share of opportunity. All right, that's the big part. Everybody does get their fair share of opportunity. If you're, I'm not like take this for example, right? Like, I'm not saying like I'm only gonna give you this information if you're blonde haired and blue eyed. Right, like if I was doing that, then that would not be fair. But I am giving this information to everybody for free, right? And that is what I mean by the equal opportunity. Everybody has an equal opportunity, but at the end of the day, if you take a look at it, in this scenario where everybody has an equal opportunity, almost nobody makes it. I mean, we're effectively talking about 0% success, 0.00001%. Somewhere between that and 0.000001%. And, and I've already, and I was already discussing this, when it comes to money, you should not, I would highly suggest that you do not try and make your money via cash. It is the most ridiculous way to make money. It's the hardest way. I mean, and you're going to be battling inflation forever. All right, your money's going to be getting inflated away forever, effectively forever. I mean, making money via cash is the worst idea. All right, realistically, make money via equity. There are different ways to increase the equitable value of your assets, right? I mean, there are many ways to do these things. And once you have equitable assets, you have to understand that the appraisal value of your equitable asset is the value because it is deemed to be that value by people who know what they're doing. Like, if you go into the bank and they evaluate your business at $900,000, if you go to another bank, they will more or less evaluate your, they should. I mean, they should. I mean, evaluate your business at more or less of $900,000 as well. And if you have a $900,000 business and and you have $1 million worth of real estate, that's about $2 million worth of equity, and you're also net positive, $15,000 a month cash, then you can buy whatever you want, anything on the entire planet. You know, granted that you don't go into, you know, a gamble or something like that, right? I mean, that's the big criteria, right? I mean, but you know, like in my situation, I got $1 million worth of real estate. I have about $1 million business. My business is on the up and up. My real estate portfolio is on the up and up. I'm already producing a net positive cash flow of about 60 grand, 100 grand a year. And I'm probably going to double that, within 6 months. And then I can effectively buy anything on the entire planet. And realistically, I'm only, maybe I make 30, like $25,000-$30,000 a month, right? And so I can already buy anything on the entire planet. Realistically, I mean, I'm just gonna be completely honest. I just sit on the money, right? I think about it. What do I want to do with the money? I don't go and YOLO it, right? I mean, I've always said that that's a horrible idea. But I'm gonna open this gate up for them, and then I'm gonna get on going. Y'all have a good one, you too.